On our way to work this morning, we started thinking about where do extra truck axles come from, how to clean giant expensive filters, and the easiest way to move a vehicle vertically. Next on Performance TV.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Performance TV. You know our projects range anything from small to all the way up to the big rigs. Isn't that right, Tommy?
You know, for years I've seen the big rigs rolling down the highway with a whole line of axles, and I just figured that's the way they came from the factory, but little did I know, that's usually an add-on kit. I'm with Gary Barber from 3FS Enterprises and your global suspension kits. Gary, you build a whole kit to add on axles, and tell me about it. Why would I want to do that to a truck?
Well, it's going to depend on what your application is. In this particular matter here, what we're doing is we've got a 25,000 pound capacity suspension that we're mounting on a chassis. It's going to be set up for a dump truck. What the suspension does is it's going to go air up, air down, and it adds that capacity. For Indiana, where I'm from, it's rated up to 18,000 pounds what you can carry on this particular part of the truck.
Right, so you can carry more load and be legal going down the highway and spread the load weight out on the chassis.
Correct.
Now, what all comes with a global suspension package? This is something you can order for how many trucks, and what all comes and how easy to put on this truck?
Well, it comes in various different situations here. What we got here is a suspension, axle, hub and drums with the air control kits and everything. It comes with the airbags. The axle already has the brakes, slack adjusters, everything already on it. I also offer it as a knockdown kit where you can buy just the suspension without the axle, and somebody can use somebody else's axle in it. But we also offer several other different variations. We've got a 15,000 pound capacity suspension that also fits this application. We're going to be coming out with a 20,000 pound self-steer suspension later on this year. And we got a couple other new ones that we're going to be working on.
Now, this has been added to a brand new truck that's going to be sold to a customer. The dealership wanted to add this as an option?
That's correct. M&K Truck Sales out of Indianapolis is who supplied the truck for us. They have this axle put on so they can use this chassis for other things. If they don't have a dump body sold for this particular chassis, they can use it for another application. So they add an axle on it.
Now, this is a massive piece. How hard is it to install? Like, so let's say I order one, I got a truck, I want to add it to my truck. Do you have installers, or can this is something I can do myself?
We have installers, or you can also do it by yourself, just depending on what kind of equipment you got to do it with. This particular axle was installed by Muller Welding out of Indianapolis for us. He's one of our bigger dealers, and anybody can put them on though. I mean, it just depends.
I see the lines on the chassis where you've marked off center lines, line it all up, drill some holes obviously, and basically it's a bolt-on system.
Right. What we do is measure off of the drive axle so we get the right spread on it, so you get the weight distributed evenly, and that way everything works out better.
Obviously it's run by air, it's also got brakes. How hard is it to plumb all this into the factory system?
It's not hard. You just got to have a schematic, which we supply, so you know where to plumb into, where to hook up. It's, you know, obviously not rocket science, or we wouldn't be doing it.
I see the trucks going down the road, and sometimes the wheels are down, sometimes they're up. How does this thing operate?
It's got air up, air down. We've got air controls we use here. It's got air pressure regulator, so you can adjust the air pressure to it so you get the proper amount of weight put on it, so you're not running illegal with it. Because sometimes some guys will want to take too much weight off of it, so they're too heavy on the drive axles or too heavy on the front steer axle.
Yeah, you got control panels here. You got two different models. Why the difference in them?
One of them's got an electric solenoid on the back of it we use for our self-steer suspension, so that when you go into reverse, automatically raises the axle up.
Right, because otherwise the wheels will cock on you.
They'll flip to one side and they'll mess you up while you're
So you put it in reverse, it automatically lifts the axle up.
Right.
Okay, and then the other one's just a standard one for the non-steer.
Right.
You said normally the installation's in the cab, a guy can do it sitting in the truck.
Right.
We've got one mounted here. How easy does this work?
It's just a matter of pushing the button right here.
Wow, and you can do that in the truck. You can do it driving down the road. You can do it sitting still.
Right.
If you're getting ready to take on a load, you can just go ahead and pull the switch, done.
Right.
You're ready to go down the highway.
Right.
Wow, now I see a lot of lines. I mean, there's a lot to this whole system, isn't there?
There is quite a bit to it, but again, it's pretty easy to put on. It just takes a little bit of time.
You've been doing this for a few years, huh?
Oh, probably about 30, 35.
Yeah, I'd say it's got some experience in it. I mean, you've worked out all the bugs.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking to add an axle so you can carry a little more weight with your big rig, be sure and check them out, 3FS Enterprises. They can fix you up. We're going to be back with more Performance TV right after this.
This edition of Performance TV, presented by ARP, is being brought to you by Tite, the clamp making tool. BD Diesel Performance, the leaders in diesel performance. No Limit Engineering, quality hot rod parts and engineering. And by ARP, the world leader in fastener technology.
One of the really cool things about the modern day vehicle, they're drive-by-wire. One of the not so cool things, they're drive-by-wire. The computer still has control no matter how hard you hit that throttle. Well, on today's show, we've got a new product that's going to give your right foot a little more say.
Well, first, Tommy, I have to say, I've raced everything from dragsters to dualies, and the drive-by-wire stuff, yeah, it is not your friend when you're trying to run and play the top end of the track. But today we're talking about our daily driver. And wouldn't it be great to not have all of that pedal lag, have more control like Tommy mentioned? Well, you're gonna be able to do that with the throttle sensitivity booster. And by reducing your pedal lag, well, you're going to cause your performance curve to occur sooner. And that's gonna make your turbo spool up even quicker, getting off the line faster, being able to get into traffic on highways even quicker, have more control. And you know what? Not just for our truck that we have here today, our Cummins, which they cover all different years, but also we have you Power Stroke and your Duramax guys covered as well. And Tommy, he's gonna get it installed for us.
Well, the first step in connecting our throttle sensitivity booster is we've disconnected the battery of the truck. Next is to install the wiring harness they supply with it. We've got to go in and disconnect the factory throttle sensor where it's connected. We're going to plug it into this harness and then into the new control module. Let's get started. All right, we'll go down underneath here and pop this out. These can be a little difficult. You got to hold your mouth just right. Pop the clip and then pull it out. And there we go. That wasn't easier than I thought. Now we'll connect our new wiring harness into the factory harness that was here. There we go, snap that in place. And then we'll put this on the throttle pedal, on the sensor. And when you get the throttle sensitivity booster, you need to take that apart, just pop these two little things here and pull the control panel out, because we've got to do some programming before we can actually use it. And plug it into our module. All right, next step, rehook up the battery.
Well, Tommy, in addition to the throttle sensor booster that we are installing from BD Diesel Performance, they have a whole vast line of different products, not only for the Cummins like we're installing today, but also for the Power Stroke guys and the Duramax folks too. If you live in a colder climate and you didn't have the high idle kit installed on your vehicle when it came from the factory, well, BD Diesel Performance can take care of that for you. Not only is it great high idle, help build heat in the motor a lot faster, but if you happen to have bigger batteries, if you have dual alternators, if you're trying to run a pump, something like that, the high idle kit is really going to help out with that. Something else to help you out with, maybe if you're doing a little racing, starting off with our throttle sensitivity booster, going right into the staging limiter. Now this is going to work into your system where you can actually control exactly what RPM you're going to launch. And hey, drag racing is all about being consistent. You hook this into your system. Once you get your idle set to where you want it to be and your launch RPM, a couple of different ways you can do so depending on how your vehicle works. All you have to do is let go of the brake and you are off and running. And Tommy is just about ready to be off and running with what we're installing today.
We're not ready to go yet. We have to learn our own throttle pedal, the factory one. So what we do is you got to turn the key on. Then you want to hit this learn pedal mode. Now you see the lights. Then you press the throttle down several times, then 15 seconds, and then it should flash to tell us we're ready. There we go, flashing ready. But we're still not ready to go yet, because right here is our switch. Now, it has 3 positions. One is our factory position, and we can turn it to 2. That'll give us 50% boost, or we can turn it to 3. That'll give us 100% sensitivity boost. So if we're gonna go big. We're almost ready. I'm gonna reinstall this cover. I'm gonna mount it up underneath the dash. I get to go for a test drive. Well, it didn't add 1,000 horsepower, but it did make it pretty snappy. While I'm out here cruising around, I hope Kathy's doing something in the studio.
You know, we're seeing more and more turbos on the market all the time. And Robert from Stage 8, this particular one, they were using bolts like this. Now, Robert, these aren't even grade 8 bolts.
Those aren't even grade 5 bolts,
I know,
Kathy. Those are grade 2. There's 3 different size bolts in your hand. Turbos are actually famous for loosening the mounting bolts that mount them to the manifold. So what we have here is a locking turbo fastener. We put a groove in the top of the bolt. The bolt goes in and gets torqued to spec. The locking retainer goes over the head of the bolt just like a box end wrench, and then you just throw an E-clip in to hold it in place. Now, of course, we have nuts for studs also, and they work the exact same way with a groove in the top of the nut. You tighten it down and a larger retainer goes over there. Now, one of the things to remember about locking turbo fasteners is you want to make sure you buy the turbo kits because they come with stainless steel hardware on the top of the bolt.
Oh, yeah, my gosh, those things are creating, what, like 1,500 degrees of heat?
Exactly, and your aluminum retainers will melt at about 1,200 degrees, and you don't want a molten mess on your turbo.
Absolutely not, because they do look like about the same size as a header bolt.
They are. The heads are actually the same size, which is a 7/16, but this is a true grade 8 fastener with a duplex nickel finish, so it looks nice and shiny for you. And then this is what we call a double hex head. So in those really hard to reach places, you can actually use a 3/16 ball Allen to spin them in, but of course torque it from the outside.
Well, I'll tell you what, Stage 8 has something for all types of applications. Just hop on their website, stage8.com. That's stage, the number 8.com.
Performance TV, presented by ARP, coming to you from Borla Commerce Park.
From muscle cars to sports cars and SUVs, you know, all of these vehicles are giving us a great example of lots of plumbing underneath the hood. And sometimes plumbing can cause problems, but when we have something like Clamp Tite, Sonora, I want to thank you for joining us today. How did Clamp Tite all originate?
Actually, this was one of my father's 34 patents that he had.
34?
34
I'm
patents.
lucky if I ever even thought about getting one.
And actually what it does is it makes a better hose clamp. It's always the right size, the right shape. It's a true 360-degree seal. So it's just a better way to attach something.
And I know here in a moment you're going to show us how easy this is to do, but something that amazes me is how hose clamping got started in the history. And you know, everything has an evolution as it goes along, but when we look back at some of the older ones that you have here and as an example, I can't even see how this one even worked to start with. And then when you get into the ones that we very commonly see, and still see some of these today, these cause a lot of problems with flat spots. But when we get to the end, this is what you're going to show us here with Clamp Tite.
That's right, yeah. We have problems with this because it comes in sizes, it doesn't seal right, and it's the flat spot issue you mentioned.
You know, when you're talking about the sealing and the clamping, how many more PSI are we going to get with the Clamp Tite that we would with something like this?
These clamps are actually 10 times stronger than a regular hose clamp.
And plus with having it all the way around, we see it on the hose here, but you can also do things when it comes to being able to reduce. Now, is this a pen?
It is. Actually, we went from a half-inch hose to a big pin.
And it's sealing all the way around. And lots of different examples here, but what I'm really curious about seeing is, can you show us how one is installed?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. Typically, we use safety wire. It works the best, but almost any kind of wire will work.
So we're working with stainless steel, so we don't have to worry about, you know, rusting or anything like that. Okay.
So you take your wire and you're going to fold it in half. You're going to wrap it around your project.
And this gives us like a good example of maybe, you know, like almost the size of a heater hose or something like that.
Yeah, it's a 3/4 inch.
So we wrap it around twice.
It's a double half hitch is the type of knot, but you just fold the wire in half and go through twice.
Okay.
And you connect it there. This is where you're going to connect the tool. Bring the wire over the pins on each side. This is where the pressure is, so it needs to be nice and snug.
Okay.
Now check this out. There's a little notch on the nose of that tool.
Right.
You're going to put the wire in that notch.
Okay.
That gives you something actually to push up against. The reason why the tool works so well is you're going to push and pull on the wire as you turn the nut. So you're pushing on the outside of the wire, and then you're pulling on the inside of the wire. Do you follow me?
Yes, and that's part of what we're going to get that nice even all the way around.
Right. It's a true 360-degree seal that's not going to cause you a flat spot, or it's always going to be the right size because you do a custom fit.
Sure.
So as you tighten it down, I want you to go ahead and turn that nut for me. You see how easily it turns.
Okay.
They did a hose-to-hose test, no fitting or any
And you're having me doing this with my left hand, you realize that, okay. No glue.
It held 310 pounds of water pressure, and then if you use a barb fitting or a rib fitting, you're in the thousands of pounds.
Wow. And you can just keep going with this. This is
Squeeze
amazing.
the fire out of it.
You know, so, and how do we wrap this up?
Now when you're ready to lock it, if you have the room, you're going to pivot the tool over itself.
Okay.
Now so many times you're up against a firewall and you don't have that room to pivot it all the way over.
Sure.
So what you're going to do, your starting position is going to be perpendicular or straight up and down to your project.
Okay.
You're going to tighten it this way. All you'll need is a 30-degree angle off center, and that's enough to lock it. You're going to take your cutters. We're going to cut these. I cut them long, and then I'm going to come back and clean it up. I'm going to push my ends toward my middle of the other wires. Check that out.
You know, and what amazes me too is you're not feeling anything where you're getting caught. So many different ways that we can use this, different examples that we have here, everything from rope to airline hose and everything else. And the complete kit comes together. Looks, we see the tool and everything else. If we wanted to find out more about how we could get a kit, where could we find one?
It's on our website. It's www.clamptitetools.com.
All right, simple as that, and what a great way to fix something in a jiffy, or if you just want to do something permanently. You can find out more by hopping on the website, and we'll have more up next here on Performance TV.
This edition of Performance TV, presented by ARP, is being brought to you by Air Filter Blaster, the original and patented air filter blaster. Evapo-Rust, super safe rust remover. Giant Finishing, a leader in vibratory mass finishing equipment. And by Checkered Flag Tires, tires and balance beads to your door.
Welcome back to Performance TV. You know, if you have a motor, more than likely you have a filter. And a lot of these big motors, well, they have the canister size filters on there. And if you're not keeping them clean, you're cleaning out your wallet is what you're doing, and you shouldn't be doing that. You could be using a filter blaster. And Dennis, this looks like a pretty neat little thing you got going on here.
It's pretty cool. So basically, any canister filter you have from only 3.5 inches inside diameter and only 3 inches tall, so we're even talking your lawnmower, your kid's ATV, your shop vac, clear up to the biggest pieces of mining equipment that's out there on the market today. It's very easy, very simple. Go ahead and assemble, put your two shafts together, pick out whichever air ride bearing that's going to fit in the inside diameter of the filter you want to clean.
Yeah, because I see, 4 different sizes?
Yep, we have a 3, a 4.5, a 6, and a 9-inch rotor.
Okay.
It's all air ride technology, so you have no ball bearings, no needle bearings, no grease. There's not even any parts on the tool really to wear off. It's using the air that you're feeding off your compressor to go ahead and run the bearing.
Okay.
Right, so it's basically riding on a cushion of air. At 125 PSI coming off your airline hose, this air ride bearing is doing 2,700 RPMs and will never damage that air filter. So even if you got a hired hand or a kid that can't read a pressure gauge, you can put up to 200 PSI into it. It doesn't matter. The induction chamber will never allow any more than 48.2 pounds to come out of any one air jacket, number one. Secondly, it's going so fast, you never have a direct blast of air to ever damage, puncture, or tear that paper element.
How long can this extend the life of a filter?
20 times.
And it doesn't matter what brand or what ply or
No.
anything that the filter is?
It doesn't. If it's gotten wet, and really saturated or something, the filter is deteriorating itself, but it's very easy to check all the time, just even with the light. If there's a small hole even in that filter, it'll pull through just like a lightning bolt, and you'll be able to see that the filter is stressed or has a small hole.
So you mentioned it being damp or whatever. Would you want to kind of let something dry out first too before you would use it?
You could. We've done some pretty good testings with K&N. K&N's really trying to come into the ag market and everything, but they have those giant filters. And the problem is that you would have to go ahead and use their solution, and they're suggesting to go ahead and get it out with a garden hose.
Right.
Now you got to let the filter set for like 7-8 hours until the filter's dry before you can go ahead and put it back in your piece of equipment. With this device here, all I did to help them out and try and move forward with this, I went to Lowe's and got a Miracle Grow. container. Adapted it to her because she is totally amphibious, that she'll run water through it. So I put the K&N solution in the Miracle-Gro container instead of using the garden hose.
Right.
Hooked it up, went up and down. It flushed out the filter like no tomorrow, a lot better than the garden hose they were using. Then took that apparatus off, went back to the air. Now I run it up and down several times with the air. I dried out the filter. I just took an 8-hour job and turned it into 15 minutes.
Wow, and that's what I'm anxious to see. We've got a filter over here that's actually from what, Powder Coating Company?
Booth.
Okay, let's check it out and see how this thing works. Because you did mention we're just going to take it, how many times do you think we'll go up and down here?
I'll just go ahead and go up and down one time and we'll see the amount. We don't want to make a huge mess out of the shop. So this air ride bearing, you set it in there. We've now sealed the filter element, not allowing any dirt to get back inside. If you're using an air wand, as soon as you put your air wand in there, you just created a vortex. So it doesn't matter how much you're watching the wind, some of the dirt you're blowing out actually gets sucked back in the air filter, and you yourself are contaminating your own filter each time you do that. So if you're a farmer or any piece of heavy equipment operator and you do that every day for like the 30, 40 days of harvest, you can go ahead and spend $150 for a new filter. It doesn't matter because now your primary filter, the inner filter, is already plugged because of all the stuff you put in there.
All right,
and your engine still can't breathe.
Let's check this out.
Look, sitting high.
Look at all the stuff come out of there. It's absolutely amazing. Wow, that is really something else. You want to find out how you can get your own filter blaster? Well, just hop on their website, right, Dennis? Yep. Filterblaster.com. And we'll have more next time around here on Performance TV.